constant consciousness. I became extremely serious about meditation practice when I read the following line from the illustrious Sri Ramana Maharshi: that which is not present in deep dreamless sleep is not real. That is a shocking statement because basically there is nothing, literally nothing, in the deep dreamless state. That was his point. Ultimate reality, or spirit, Ramana said, cannot be something that pops into consciousness and then pops out. It must be something that is constant, permanent, or more technically something that, being timeless, is fully present at every point in time. Therefore, ultimate reality must also be fully present in deep dreamless sleep, and anything that is not present in deep dreamless sleep is not ultimate reality. This profoundly disturbed me because I had had several Kinsho or Satori-like experiences, powerful glimpses of one taste, but they were all confined to the waking state. Moreover, most of the things I cared for existed in the waking state, and yet clearly the waking state is not permanent. It comes and goes every 24 hours, and yet, according to the great sages, there is something in us that is always conscious, that is literally conscious or aware at all times and through all states, waking, dreaming, sleeping. And that ever-present awareness is spirit in us. That underlying current of constant consciousness or non-dual awareness is a direct and unbroken ray of pure spirit itself. It is our connection with the goddess, our pipeline straight to God. Thus, if we want to realize our supreme identity with spirit, we will have to plug ourselves into this current of constant consciousness and follow it through all changes of state, waking, dreaming, sleeping, which will strip us of an exclusive identification with any of those states, such as the body, the mind, the ego, or the soul, and allow us to recognize and identify with that which is constant or timeless. Through all of those states, namely consciousness as such, by any other name, timeless spirit. The moment this constant non-dual consciousness is obvious in your case, a new destiny will awaken in the midst of the manifest world. You will have discovered your own Buddha mind, your own Godhead, your own formless, spaceless, timeless, infinite emptiness, your own Atman, that is Brahman, your Keter, Christ, consciousness, radiant, Shekinah, in so many words, one taste. It is unmistakably so, and just that is your true identity, pure emptiness or pure unqualifiable consciousness as such, and thus you are released from the terror and the torment that necessarily arise when you identify with a little subject in a world of little subjects. Once you find your formless identity as Buddha mind, as Atman, as pure spirit or Godhead, you will take that constant, non-dual, ever-present consciousness and re-enter the lesser states, subtle mind and gross body, and reanimate them with radiance. You will not remain merely formless and empty. You will empty yourself of emptiness. You will pour yourself out into the mind and world and create them in the process and enter them all equally, but especially and particularly that specific mind and body that is called you, that is called, in my case, Ken Wilbur. This lesser self will become the vehicle of the spirit that you are. And then all things, including your little mind and body and feelings and thoughts, will arise in the vast emptiness that you are. And they will self-liberate into their own true nature just as they arise, precisely because you no longer identify with any one of them, but rather let them play, let them all arise in the emptiness and openness that you now are. You then will awaken as a radical freedom and sing those songs of radiant release, beam an infinity too obvious to see, and drink an ocean of delight. You will look at the moon as part of your body and bow to the sun as part of your heart. And it is all just so. For eternally and always, there is only this. But you have not formed this freedom, or in any way attained it. It is in fact the same freedom that has lived in the house of pure witness from the very start. You are merely recognizing the pure and empty self, the radiant I that has been your natural awareness from the beginning and all along, but that you didn't notice because you had become lost in the intoxicating movie of life. With the awakening of constant consciousness, you become something of a divine schizophrenic in the popular sense of split-minded, because you have access to both the witness and the ego. You are actually whole-minded, but it sounds like it's split, because you are aware of the constant witness or spirit in you. And you are also perfectly aware of the movie of life, the ego, and all its ups and downs. So you still feel pain and suffering and sorrow, but they can no longer convince you of their importance. You are no longer the victim of life, but its witness. In fact, because you are no longer afraid of your feelings, you can engage them with much greater intensity. The movie of life becomes more vivid and vibrant, precisely because you are no longer grasping or avoiding it, and thus no longer trying to dull or dilute it. You no longer turn the volume down. You might even cry harder, laugh louder, jump higher. Choiceless awareness doesn't mean you cease to feel. It means you feel fully, feel deeply, feel to infinity itself, and laugh and cry and love until it hurts. Life jumps right off the screen, and you are one with all of it because you don't recoil. If you are having a dream and you think it's real, it can get very scary. Say you are dreaming that you are on a tightrope walking across the Niagara Falls. If you fall off, you plunge to your death. So you are walking very slowly, very carefully. Then suppose you start lucid dreaming and you start to realize that it's just a dream. What do? Become more cautious and careful? No. You start jumping up and down on the tightrope. You do flips. You bounce around. You have a ball, precisely because you know it isn't real. When you realize it's a dream, you can afford to play. The same thing happens when you realize that ordinary life is just a dream, just a movie, just a play. You don't become more cautious, more timid, more reserved. You start jumping up and down and doing flips precisely because it's all a dream. It's all pure emptiness. You don't feel less, you feel more. Because you can afford to. You are no longer afraid of dying, and therefore you are not afraid of living. You become radical and wild, intense and vivid, shocking and silly. You let it all come pouring through because it's all your dream. Life then assumes its true intensity, its vivid luminosity, its radical effervescence. Pain is more painful, and happiness is happier. Joy is more joyous, and sorrow even sadder. It all comes radiantly alive to the mirror mind, the mind that doesn't grasp or avoid, that simply witnesses the play, and therefore can afford to play, even as it watches. What would motivate you if you saw everything as the dream of your own highest self? What would actually move you in this playful dream world? Everything in the dream is basically fun at some deep level, except for this: when you see your friends suffering because they think the dream is real, you want to relieve their suffering. You want them to wake up too. Watching them suffer is not fun. And so a deep and powerful compassion arises in the hearts of the awakened ones, and they seek, above all else, to awaken others, and thus relieve them from the sorrow and the pity, the torment and the pain, the terror and the anguish that come from taking, with dreadful seriousness, the silly dream of life. So you are a divine schizophrenic. You are split-minded, in the sense that you are simultaneously in touch with both the pure witness and the world of the ego film. But that really means you are actually whole-minded, because these two worlds are really not two. The ego is just the dream of the witness, the film that the witness creates out of its own infinite plenitude, simply so it will have something to watch at the movies. At that point, the entire play arises within your own constant consciousness. There is no inside and no outside, no in here versus out there. The non-dual universe of one taste arises as a spontaneous gesture of your own true nature. You can taste the sun and swallow the moon, and centuries fit in the palm of your hand. The pure I, the great I amness, breathes to infinity and creates a cosmos as a song of its very self, and oceans of compassion fall as tears from your own original face. Last night, I saw the reflection of the moon in a cool, clear crystal pond, and nothing else happened at all.